Everybody's come this morning and had a look at the damage, and it looks like we can get up and running on Tuesday morning, and that's the most important thing. And all of our people are nice and safe, so yeah, that's good.
The growth in international tourism over the past couple of years to this area has been in double-digit terms. It's been significant.
After starting out as a gymnast, Matthew Helm turned to diving and, under the guidance of Eric Brooker, has matured into the region's latest athlete, set to compete at Sydney 2000. Seen here as fresh-faced 14-year-old, Helm won state and national junior titles and competed at the World Junior Championships before winning a scholarship in 1995 and moving to Brisbane. Helm will compete in the 10-metre platform and 10-metre synchronised events. Meanwhile, the last day of the State Gymnastics Championships wrapped up today. In the women's division, it was Level 8 competitor Lara Ware who managed to get the best results for the Hunter, earning Nationals selection. And in the men's Level 8 competitor Kyle Thompson recorded the best local result, earning a first place on the bars and second on the parallel bars. Both will go to Adelaide next month for the national titles. And also at Broadmeadow, the state finals in inline hockey was contested, with Newcastle emerging victorious over Shoalhaven. In the main match, the under-19s, Newcastle put away 8 goals to Shoalhaven's 3. The event is used as a selection for a state team to compete in the Nationals at Melbourne in October. A large portion of the Hunter teams from each of the 5 age divisions were named today, selected after 4 days of competition. Adam Harper, NBN News.
And they developed the same needs that the crowd support was the one thing that helped. 100 metre freestyle and the 50 metre 1 and 200 metre freestyle, because that is all it is. I get no push off my feet from the edge of the pool.
Got a Driscoll came up with the defensive play that gave the Eagles the ball. Taylor, nice cutout ball. Alford, he's got players in motion. Menzies, but Dimmick, 13 on 13.
Read it well, didn't he, Jim Dimmick? Menzies trying to run into that hole. Dimmick slid off Taylor and made the tackle.
This was raised at $1,127. Thank you, Len.
Newcastle Westpac 1's on Channel 10. Okay, Newcastle Westpac 1's reached... I don't think there's any option but to do a winch. Yes, I agree. We need to put somebody down there.
The air crewman creates a word picture for the pilot. Basically, that means that
Not all children are lucky enough to get all the growing up advice they need from their parents or carers. So the New South Wales Police Legacy Association has prepared these handbooks unveiled in the Hunter today.
It's about skilling kids up about those sort of protective behaviours they need to keep safe around the home, in the streets, at school. And it goes to even extremes of child abuse and alcohol and drug abuse.
And the State Emergency Service is also educating children about the dangers everyday life can pose by supplying every school in the state with this info pack on storms and floods.
In the case of floods, teaching them the safety regarding water and how they can call for help, how they can get assistance if they're flooded in.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The Acropolis rally has a reputation for breaking cars, and it did its darndest to destroy Michael Guess. Rocky roads on the second day left the Australian limping 20 kilometres on 3 wheels to finish a stage, and then a further 16 to get it replaced.
What you see behind me here is just an example of what can go wrong.
With the damage fixed just in time, guest and navigator David Green were back on the road, finishing the day in second in their 2-wheel drive 2-litre class and maintaining that position until the end of the rally.
The Acropolis has turned out to be everything that we expected, rough and tough, and it's just decimated a field of top-class drivers, and it's great to be one of the ones who have made it to the finish.
Guest has now had a first and a second in his 3 events for Hyundai. His next will be the Rally of Finland in August and in the top World Rally Car class.
It was hoped today John Palmer, a director of property company True Blue, would announce he wants to purchase the club with the backing of Soccer Australia. However, it was club CEO Maurice McAllister who fronted the media to outline the deal struck between True Blue and the old consortium, owed around $1.25 million from that deal with David Hall. According to McAllister, the old consortium that had sold the club to Hall in fact still owns it, with True Blue to buy them out over a 2-year period so long as Soccer Australia boss Stefan Kamaz gives the green light. But what is certain, David Hall no longer has anything to do with the club or True Blue.
Well, he was bought out completely.
The hundreds of thousands of dollars he left owed to creditors will now be picked up by True Blue.
We'll be sending out letters this week, and I'm sure that all our creditors will be paid within 6 weeks.
A 6-member board will be formed with 2 of the old consortium invited on, but one-time club chairman Bill Collins ruled out today that he'd take on the role once again. In the most positive sign of all, coach Lee Sterry has begun player negotiations, already meeting with Sydney-based players. Sterry will hold a team meeting in Newcastle tomorrow.
After After more than 9 months of preparation involving 113 schools from the Central Coast to Taree, it's finally showtime. It's Starstruck's 8th year and organisers are confident that this time around there's more to see than ever.
Flags, hoops, props, an Iron Man that stands 5 metres tall and explodes, fluoro painting, swinging pendulum.
The theme this year is on time, and if today's packed house for the final rehearsal was any indication, the show could well be on the money. There's more than 3,000 students taking part in the spectacular.
And it's the biggest that I know in Australia at the moment.
The show starts at 7:30. Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's often said that the eyes are the window to the soul, and these portraits from the Australian War Memorial Travelling Exhibition offer an insight into life during wartime. Artists like Sydney Nolan, Tom Roberts and William Dobell all attempted to capture the terror, fear and resilience of people in the midst of world conflict.
Through the portraits we're following military conflicts but also people's experiences of those military conflicts, both those who actually fought on the front and also others who sort of behind the scenes on the home front and those sorts of things.
The exhibition opens at the Newcastle Region Gallery in Lehman Street tomorrow night. Meantime, never-before-seen images of Newcastle have been unveiled in a collection of pastel paintings by local artist Rod Bathgate. The paintings depict the busy port in the 1800s before the construction of the Nobby's Breakwall. Bathgate used his friendship with the late historian Dr. John Turner to research the background for his new images. The paintings are on show at Mark Widdop's Cooks Hill Gallery.
The average business person in Scone rarely gets the chance to ask big corporations to put money in their operations, but today the opportunity came knocking. A team of investors and investment advisors led by the Minister for Local Government has embarked on a regional tour in a bid to make capital more accessible to country areas.
And we're bringing the people who are able to supply that capital to them. So it's an opportunity that most people in industry are grasping and taking advantage of.
Representatives from a range of industries, including wine and agriculture, put forward their case for capital to corporations like the Commonwealth Bank and the Australian Stock Exchange. Many of the local companies meeting with the 18-member tour group are fairly new businesses looking for investors. A quick capital injection helps them get started or expand, with eventual benefits for the local economy.
We can always do with more investment to stop the outflow of population which is occurring all over the bush. And this is a tremendous opportunity to, as I said, to show these people what it's all about here in the Upper Hunter.
The Minister is also considering a request from Council to partially fund a $1.2 million aviation maintenance and service cluster at Scone Airport. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
At 35, Michael Hagan admits his rise up the coaching ranks has come quicker than expected. But next season, he'll not only be one of the youngest coaches in the NRL, he'll be the first former Knights player to coach Newcastle, an honour he hopes to repay in results.
It's a very special achievement for me to get this far.
but I don't think that the job's not done just at the moment.
Starting his coaching apprenticeship at Canberra and most recently with Newcastle's First Division side, Hagan knows the step to the top grade will be a real baptism of fire, considering the parochial nature of the Newcastle supporters. As captain, Hagan led Newcastle to its first ever semi-final campaign in 1992. Ironically, that included a win against the Warren Ryan-coached Western Suburbs side. But as coach, he knows anything but a semi-final berth would be a failure. His job at Newcastle, though, will stretch much further than just first grade.
We're looking forward to having somebody on board that's going to take an interest in their lower grades and also assist in the overall methodology and how we coach right throughout the club.
He's also keen to encourage more former players back to the club in various roles, but one of his main concerns is to retain Andrew Johns, a player who had backed Hagan to be coach.
Put it this way, I'm a strong supporter of his too.
But there's still no word on what the halfback will do. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Police in the Hunter region, encompassing Newcastle and the Upper and Lower Hunter, were kept busy in 1999 trying to prevent assault and theft, and it seems their performance is about on a par with last year. Figures for the region show assaults and house break-and-enters up slightly. A further breakdown shows there were more assaults and break-and-enters in both Newcastle City and Cessnock. Overall, Maitland and Lake Macquarie experienced similar levels in both offences. Newcastle Police say their internal figures reveal a marked decrease in these two crimes in the city area. They say community awareness continues to improve.
It's starting to increase because of the problem the break-and-enters have caused the society over the last few years.
State Transit says security cameras have contributed to what it claims are its impressive figures of one assault per 1.5 million passengers in the Hunter, with drivers and passengers feeling a lot safer.
They feel much safer and we are promoting them and the community is now aware of them, and we are getting feedback saying that they also are much happier that the cameras are on the buses.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Soccer Australia has come under fire this week for a perceived lack of urgency in giving its approval on a deal that would see property company True Blue take control of the Breakers. But despite repeated attempts to acquire it, the code's governing body is still to see all the relevant documentation on the deal that saw former owner David Hall hand over control to a company he was a director and a shareholder of. Soccer Australia boss Stefan Kamaz will meet True Blue director John Palmer tomorrow to try and clear up the situation before reporting back to his board. Meanwhile, Lee Sterry is up for the Coach of the Year gong tonight at the NSL Awards ceremony. Striker John Bonavolia has been nominated for Player of the Year and Bob Catlin as goalkeeper of the 1999-2000 season. Robbie Angievski is a contender for the Youth Player Award, while the club could also win the Fair Play Award, which goes to the side with the least amount of bookings for foul play in a season. In the NBN Soccer League, one game tomorrow, while on Sunday the feature is the clash between competition leaders Edgeworth and premiers Hamilton. In Newcastle Rugby League, it's a Coalfields clash at Curry tomorrow, while the two grand finalists from last season, West and Cessnock, come head-to-head on Sunday. And in round 10 of Newcastle Rugby Union, Eastern Districts, the Tars, Merriweather and the Wanderers are all at home. It's that last-second World Championship winning shot by Sharelle McMahon that has lasted long in the memory of many Australians, yet lingers on for New Zealand. But last upstarts mean little tomorrow night.
You certainly don't bring your scrapbook to a new year.
As far as the Kiwis are concerned, what's in the past can stay there.
I don't think it's about revenge. That's been and gone, really. And like right now, two different teams, two different lineups anyway. So, no, there's nothing that can be done about that.
Both sides have changed lineup since that World Championship final, the Kiwis especially, with former South African captain Irene van Dijk, now a silver fern. She's never beaten the Aussies and would love to break that duck tomorrow night.
Yes, it's going to be a big one. Always playing Australia is going to be tough.
One thing is for sure, the Kiwis' tall timber in the goal circle will give Australia one of its toughest tasks yet.
I just think it adds that exciting element, and I know for our players and myself it's a challenge.
The Kiwis are actually defending the Trans-Tasman Trophy, but with a sellout crowd to cheer the Aussies on, it just may stay this side of the creek, alongside the World Cup as well. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
In many ways, blood pressure is a silent epidemic. Experts predict many people live with its effects but don't realise it. Blood pressure increases the chances of heart disease, heart attack and stroke by as much as 4 times.
There's a significant number of people in our community who have high blood pressure and don't know about it. So yes, at some stage people ought to have their blood pressure taken. After all, it's a pretty simple and straightforward thing to have done.
But aside from taking medication, there are ways to maintain your blood pressure at a healthy level.
If people who are overweight lose weight, that can lower blood pressure. If people reduce their salt intake and increase their potassium intake and reduce their saturated fat intake and increase their fibre intake and increase their vegetable intake, and all of those things overlap a little bit, all of those can actually lower blood pressure.
Professor Peter Fletcher has just returned from a conference in Sweden where the results of new research were revealed. The study tested a new blood pressure medication called nifedipine on more than 6,000 people.
We didn't have proof that nifedipine was both effective and safe in high blood pressure, and now we have that proof. That's the important thing from this trial.
The results of this study are good news for diabetics with blood pressure problems. The new drug causes less side effects than older medications. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Sharp Electronics in Newcastle receives about 100 calls from customers each hour. This is what they heard after 10 a.m.
This service is not connected. To reconnect a residential...
No one could call in, nobody can call out. Our phone lines, fax line, any internet services we have, it's all just been disconnected.
Sharp's Newcastle office has been a Telstra customer for 29 years. Its bill each month approaches $2,000. The only unpaid amount is $181, which is a connection fee in dispute. General Manager Ben Hickson says Telstra told him Sharp's lines were cut by mistake.
They suggested there was some new computer system that's in place and has actually gone round to businesses all over Australia, I believe, and just actually done the same thing. Anything at all that's outstanding in accounts, they've just disconnected their lines.
Telstra says that many of the people and organisations disconnected had long-standing overdue accounts, but other customers had far better credit records, similar to Sharp in Newcastle. The communications giant says it doesn't know how many of its customers fall into that basket, but that nobody should be disconnected without a warning notice or a preliminary phone call. It has apologised unreservedly for the situation, which it puts down to human error.
It's just hard to believe they could even do this, and without prior warning or notice. It's really not acceptable, is it? In the business world we live in, it's terrible.
Deep in the heart of the Bank Corner boxing gym, Stevie Hughes prepares for a shot at a state title. In 2 days' time, he'll put the countless hours of training to the test against Wollongong's Wade Clout, and no, that isn't his nickname.
He's a nice boxer, but he's going to come down here and really want to, take the title back to Wollongong, and let's go not let him do it.
The 32-year-old goes into the bout with 8 wins from 14 fights, the last against Queenslander Mick Betros in March. One of his losses, though, was 2 years ago against Clout, but as far as Hughes is concerned, that's ancient history.
Back then I didn't really have my mind on the job. I just wanted to get in there and get out straight away, which happened. But this time I want to fight and I want to win.
And it's not just the training which keeps Hughes fit, he's also raising 2 young children.
It's not much difference really, yeah, but except I can't win with them.
The battle begins on Friday night at Mayfield Ex-Services Club.
For many men, retirement is something they look forward to, but for some, giving up work can have a major impact on their quality of life. In some cases, men even become socially isolated.
As people get older, they lose touch. Like the big thing you notice is when you first retire is the loss of camaraderie with the people that you used to work with. Now, some people can compensate for that and some don't.
But now a group has been formed to support older men. A Hunter Health initiative, the program hopes to not only increase the social interaction of older men, but to improve their mental and physical health.
Statistics show that a healthy man is a happy man and he's a busy man. So we've got to provide interesting things for people to do.
Around 20 men attended the first ever meeting in Charlestown today. Similar programs already run in Sydney, where members can participate in a range of activities.
Some groups are involved in they go for long walks, bushwalking clubs and things like that. Others just meet and sit around and talk and discuss politics or what have you, community affairs.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. Prime Minister John Howard himself confirmed plans to install 4 AWAC aircraft at Williamtown RAAF Airbase. But when the funding for the project failed to appear in the budget, concerns were expressed the federal government would delay the program.
There's been a number of scare stories over the last year that this project was going to be scrapped. Well, I'm here today to say that this project is certainly going ahead. There's an agreed price between Boeing and the government on this contract.
According to Senator John Tierney, the delivery of the 4 aircraft will be a boost for the Williamtown facility.
We now with the AWACS have added another capability to Williamtown, which makes it a major base for Australia.
The aircraft, which uses sophisticated radar to detect hostile intruders, will greatly improve Australia's defence readiness.
With the regional instability to the north of Australia, as we've seen with East Timor and as we've also seen in the Pacific, suddenly problems crop up. We've now got a new pair of eyes to actually see over the horizon.
It's hoped the contract will be signed with Boeing in late July. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
The Hunter Academy of Sport caters for a wide range of enthusiastic young sports people, with an eye to the future in their chosen event. But often injury prevents them from reaching their potential.
If we can identify problems before injury strikes, then we can teach the athlete how to fix their problem or make an intervention to help decrease the risk of injury.
Jessica Lincoln is developing a muscle imbalance and posture assessment for such athletes in the academy, hoping to do more than just reduce the risk of injury.
This will definitely have a good effect on their performance as well. If they become more efficient in the way they move, then that can have a carryover effect and they can improve the way they perform on the field.
It's the first program of its kind in the Hunter. Enthusiastic sports people would have had to travel to Sydney before for this kind of assessment. While it's only a pilot program at this stage, catering for around 20 of the Academy's athletes, it's hoped the program will continue for regional level competitors. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Newcastle's residents pay ad valorem rates, which are calculated according to the value of their land. That means some people on fixed incomes, like pensioners, struggle to pay rates on expensive properties. Lord Mayor John Tate tried to change that in this year's budget, but was defeated. He says new valuations on properties next year mean the community will still want change.
If we want to look at the future as far as a progressive rate system is concerned, we need to be looking at the base rate system.
Newcastle's total budget for next year is $126.4 million. $33.4 million will be collected in residential rates at an average of just over $642 per household. In the base rate system, the council works out how much money it needs to collect and divides it across the number of households. Lake Macquarie and Port Stephens both use a mixture of systems. Lake Macquarie has budgeted for $125 million, with $42.7 million to be collected in residential rates. The base charge is $261.80, while the average comes in $14 lower than Newcastle at $628. Port Stephens' budget is $50.5 million, with $14.8 million paid for by residents. Its base charge is $160.33, with an average total rate of $641.30. Mayor Steve Bustede is delighted with the financial performance of his debt-free council.
We're not going to run a deficit this year, and we're not going to borrow any funds. So in that position, council is one of the leading councils in Australia.